I am a 35-year-old software engineer from Seattle who thought I had built a perfect life. Jessica and I were married for 8 years with a relationship grounded in trust, open communication, and genuine love. We had our dream home, well-paying careers, and were finally ready to start a family. Her college best friend, Amanda, had been a constant presence throughout our relationship. I never thought her best friend would destroy everything we built together with a single lie. Before I share how my world shattered overnight, tell me where you are watching from and subscribe if you want to hear how I rebuilt my life after the ultimate betrayal. My story with Jessica began at a tech conference in Portland 10 years ago. I was presenting a panel on software integration while she was there representing her marketing firm. Our eyes met during the networking mixer, and there was an instant connection that I cannot explain. She approached me with questions about my presentation, but we quickly moved beyond professional talk to discover our shared love for hiking classic films and spicy food. We exchanged numbers, and what followed was a whirlwind of coffee dates, weekend adventures, and late-night conversations about everything from childhood memories to future dreams. Jessica was different from anyone I had dated before. She was ambitious but kind, intelligent but humble, beautiful but completely unaware of how she lit up every room she entered. After 6 months, we were practically living together, splitting time between our apartments. At 14 months, during a sunrise hike to our favorite summit, I proposed with a sapphire ring that matched her eyes. Her enthusiastic yes echoed through the mountains, and I remember thinking life could not possibly get better than that moment. Our wedding was intimate but perfect. Jessica looked breathtaking in her simple white gown, and I could barely contain my emotions as we exchanged vows. Amanda served as the maid of honor, giving a touching speech about their friendship and welcoming me into their circle. She seemed genuinely happy for us, hugging me and calling me her new brother. After the honeymoon, we bought our house in a quiet Seattle suburb. I threw myself into renovations, while Jessica decorated each room with careful attention to detail. We established careers at respected companies, created traditions like Sunday brunches and monthly camping trips, and built a community of friends who shared our values. We had discussions about starting a family, but agreed to wait until we felt professionally secure and our home was ready. Amanda had been part of our lives from the beginning. She and Jessica met during college orientation and had been inseparable ever since. They shared an apartment through senior year and remained close despite occasional career relocations. Amanda was intelligent, outgoing, and well-liked by everyone in our social circle. She worked as a paralegal at a prestigious law firm downtown and lived in a stylish apartment about 15 minutes from our house. I always appreciated their friendship, understanding that Jessica needed that connection separate from our relationship. Amanda attended most of our gatherings, joined us for holidays when her family was unavailable, and became a fixture in our social plans. I never had any reason to question her intentions and genuinely considered her a friend of mine as well. Things began to shift about a year ago when Amanda experienced a difficult breakup with her boyfriend of 3 years. She had expected a proposal, but instead discovered he had been unfaithful with a coworker. The revelation devastated her, and naturally Jessica stepped up to provide emotional support through the crisis. Amanda began spending significantly more time at our house. What started as occasional dinners to lift her spirits evolved into weekly movie nights, impromptu brunches, and long weekend visits. Jessica welcomed her presence, wanting to help her friend through the painful period, but I started noticing subtle changes in Amanda's behavior toward me. She would find reasons to touch my arm during conversations or stand unusually close when Jessica left the room. She began texting me directly instead of through our shared group chat, asking innocent questions about house repairs or restaurant recommendations. Nothing overtly inappropriate, but frequent enough to create a pattern that made me increasingly uncomfortable. I mentioned my observations to Jessica once, suggesting that perhaps Amanda was becoming too dependent on our company. Jessica dismissed my concerns, attributing any unusual behavior to Amanda's emotional fragility following her breakup. She reminded me that friendship sometimes requires extra patience during difficult times, and I agreed, not wanting to seem unsympathetic or jealous of their close bond. The early warning signs continued to accumulate over the following months. Amanda started showing up unannounced when she knew Jessica would be working late, offering to bring dinner because she was in the neighborhood. She would ask personal questions about our marriage during these visits, wondering if we ever fought or how we handled disagreements. She complimented me, constantly remarking on everything from my cooking skills to my physical appearance in ways that felt excessive. Jessica worked as a marketing director, often attending evening client meetings or traveling for conferences. Amanda began making subtle comments about these commitments, questioning whether Jessica was truly working during these absences or suggesting that her career focus might indicate misplaced priorities. She would sigh and say things like, "I would never leave my husband alone so often if I were married," or "It must be lonely for you when she travels so much." I tried to create distance without causing offense, making excuses to be busy when I knew Amanda might visit or suggesting group activities rather than one-on-one interactions. Despite my discomfort, I never suspected the extent of what was happening beneath the surface. I attributed her behavior to loneliness, or perhaps an inappropriate crush that would eventually fade. The situation escalated dramatically after Jessica and I announced our plans to start trying for a baby. We had been discussing this step for months, carefully planning finances, researching pediatricians, and preparing our home. We shared the news during our anniversary dinner where we had gathered close friends to celebrate 8 years of marriage. Everyone responded with enthusiasm, offering congratulations and parenting advice. Everyone except Amanda, whose smile seemed forced as she raised her glass in a half-hearted toast. I caught her staring at me with an unreadable expression several times throughout the evening. Later, I noticed her taking pictures with her phone during moments when Jessica and I were separated, which seemed odd but not alarming enough to mention. Despite these undercurrents, I focused on my excitement about our future family and dismissed my uneasiness as overthinking. Jessica and I spent the next few weeks researching fertility practices, rearranging our spare room into a potential nursery, and discussing potential names. It was a joyful, intimate time for us, and I believed our marriage was stronger than ever. I had no idea that Amanda was meticulously constructing the lie that would destroy everything. Behind the scenes, Amanda had executed an elaborate scheme that I would only discover much later. She had created fake text messages that appeared to be exchanges between me and an unknown woman, carefully crafting romantic and sexual content that would seem undeniably incriminating. She downloaded photo editing software to manipulate innocent pictures from social media, placing me in locations I had never visited with people I had never met. She researched my work schedule and meetings to fabricate a believable timeline for the supposed affair, noting days when I worked late or attended professional events without Jessica. She even created a fake social media profile for my alleged mistress, building a limited but convincing online presence with strategically blurred photos and vague personal information. Most calculating of all, Amanda waited for the perfect moment to present her fabricated evidence. She chose a weekend when Jessica was particularly stressed about an upcoming work presentation and emotionally vulnerable. She asked Jessica to meet for coffee, expressing grave concern about something important she needed to discuss. During that conversation, she reluctantly revealed her suspicions about my fidelity, presenting the first pieces of her manufactured proof. I remember the day everything fell apart with painful clarity. I returned home from a productive day at work, picking up Jessica's favorite takeout as a surprise, since I knew she had been stressed. When I opened our front door, the silence felt immediately wrong. No music playing, no greeting from Jessica, just heavy stillness permeating our usually warm home. I found Jessica sitting on our living room couch, eyes red and swollen from crying. Amanda sat beside her, an arm wrapped protectively around my wife's shoulders. On the coffee table lay printed text messages, photographs, and social media screenshots that allegedly proved I had been having an affair for months. Amanda looked up with practiced sympathy that masked triumph. "I am so sorry, Bob. I did not want to be the one to tell her, but Jessica deserved to know the truth about what you have been doing." Jessica raised her eyes to meet mine, and the raw betrayal in her expression haunted me instantly. "How could you?" she whispered. With everything we have been planning for our future, I stood frozen, struggling to comprehend what was happening. The evidence before me showed conversations I had never had, places I had never been, a relationship that did not exist. I picked up the phone's screenshot, staring at messages attributed to me that I had never written to a number I did not recognize. My immediate denial came from genuine shock and confusion. Jessica, this is completely fabricated. I have never seen these messages before. I have never cheated on you. I would never do that to us. But Jessica had already spent hours reviewing Amanda's careful fabrications. She had read intimate messages discussing encounters during times when I claimed to be working late. She had seen photos that appeared to show me entering a downtown apartment building with another woman. Amanda had created a comprehensive fiction that appeared irrefutable. Then explain how Amanda found these messages on your cloud backup, Jessica demanded, her voice breaking. Explain these photos with timestamps. Explain why multiple friends have seen you with her. I frantically tried to access my accounts to prove the messages were fake, but Amanda had thought of this too. She had suggested Jessica change our Wi-Fi password and temporarily block my access to our shared devices in case I tried to delete evidence. My desperate attempts to demonstrate the technical impossibilities of her claims fell on deaf ears. "Stop lying," Jessica said, her voice hardening as tears streamed down her face. "Amanda warned me you would deny everything. She did not want to tell me, but she saw the evidence herself when she borrowed your phone to make a call last week." The perfect setup became clear. Amanda had indeed borrowed my phone briefly during our last dinner, claiming her battery had died. Now I understood why. She had used that opportunity to strengthen her story, making it seem like she had discovered the affair accidentally rather than through deliberate investigation. Amanda maintained her performance brilliantly, appearing reluctant and pained to be the messenger. "I have been sick about this for weeks," she told Jessica while shooting me a warning glance. "I kept hoping it would end, or that you would come clean. But when you started talking about having a baby, I could not stay silent anymore." My mind raced to understand how this was happening, how perfectly Amanda had constructed this trap. Every explanation I offered was countered by another piece of manufactured evidence. Every denial made me appear more guilty in Jessica's eyes. The woman I loved, who had always trusted me completely, now looked at me like I was a stranger. Jessica finally stood, arms crossed protectively over her chest. "I need you to leave tonight," she said firmly, despite her trembling voice. "I cannot even look at you right now without feeling physically ill." "Jessica, please," I begged. "We have been together for 10 years. You know me better than anyone. This is completely fabricated, and I can prove it if you give me time. Pack what you need for now," she continued, as if I had not spoken. "We can figure out the rest later through lawyers." The word lawyers hit me like a physical blow. This was not a misunderstanding we would resolve after cooling down. This was Jessica preparing to end our marriage. Amanda rose from the couch, placing herself physically between us. "I will stay with you tonight, Jess. You should not be alone right now." I recognized the calculated move immediately, ensuring I would have no opportunity to speak with Jessica privately. But I was powerless to object without appearing more aggressive and guilty. In a fog of disbelief and desperation, I packed a suitcase with clothes and essential toiletries. I tried once more to reach Jessica as I prepared to leave, finding her in our bedroom, staring blankly at wedding photos on the dresser. "I have never been unfaithful to you," I said quietly. "Not in thought or action. I love you more than anything. Please just think rationally about this. Ask yourself why Amanda would suddenly discover this, why the timing happens, just as we are planning our family." Jessica turned away, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Just go, Bob. Amanda is right about one thing. I need space to process what kind of man you really are." Those words carved a wound deeper than any physical pain I had ever experienced. I left my house keys on the kitchen counter, walked out our front door, and felt my entire life collapse around me. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I moved into a small, sterile apartment near my office, going through motions of daily survival without truly living. My calls and texts to Jessica went unanswered, or received brief, cold responses instructing me to communicate through her sister or eventually her attorney. Our mutual friends began avoiding me, having heard Jessica's version of events and seen Amanda's manufactured evidence. My performance at work suffered as I struggled to focus on coding projects while my personal life disintegrated. I lost weight, slept poorly, and moved through each day in a fog of confusion and grief. The only person who stood firmly by my side was my brother Jack, who never questioned my innocence and provided both practical support and emotional encouragement. "This does not make sense," Jack insisted during one of our late-night conversations. "You have never given Jessica any reason to doubt you before. Why would she believe this so easily?" His question sparked something in me, a shift from devastation to determination. He was right. The situation defied logic, and I had been too overwhelmed by emotion to approach it analytically. If Amanda could fabricate evidence, I could uncover the truth. I just needed to start thinking like the problem solver I was professionally trained to be. After 2 months of separation and mounting legal threats from Jessica's attorney, I reached my turning point. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a clear-headed resolve to reclaim my reputation and expose Amanda's deception. I could not force Jessica to return to our marriage, but I could at least clear my name and reveal the truth of what had happened to us. I hired Ryan, a digital forensic specialist, recommended by a colleague, to examine the alleged text messages and photos. The cost was significant, but my future was worth the investment. Ryan explained that digital content always leaves traces that can reveal manipulation, especially to trained experts with the right tools. While Ryan worked on the technical analysis, I began meticulously documenting my actual whereabouts during times I was allegedly with this fictional mistress. I gathered work login records, security camera footage from our office building, credit card statements, showing purchases in locations miles from the supposed meeting spots, and emails sent during times I was allegedly elsewhere. I also reached out to Michael, one of our closest mutual friends who had remained neutral during the separation. Though hesitant at first, he agreed to meet me for coffee after I pleaded for just 30 minutes of his time. During our conversation, I did not ask him to take sides, but simply requested that he observe Amanda's behavior around Jessica with a critical eye. "I am not asking you to spy or betray Jessica's trust," I explained. "Just pay attention to whether Amanda is truly supporting her or possibly influencing her against reconciliation. That is all." My depression gradually transformed into focused determination as I assembled the pieces of my defense. Each morning, instead of waking to overwhelming grief, I woke with purpose, adding new elements to my case against Amanda's fabrication. I began exercising again, eating properly, and rebuilding my mental strength for the battle ahead. Within weeks, Ryan's analysis produced the breakthrough I needed. He discovered clear evidence of digital manipulation in the text message screenshots, including inconsistent timestamps, font discrepancies, typical of message generators, and metadata revealing editing software usage. The photographs showing me with the alleged mistress contained subtle but definitive signs of photoshopping, including lighting inconsistencies and pixel abnormalities around the edited areas. Meanwhile, Michael began noticing concerning patterns in Amanda's behavior. During group gatherings, she would interject negative comments whenever my name arose, reminding Jessica of the evidence or suggesting new ways I might be deceiving her. She actively discouraged Jessica from attending events where she might encounter me, claiming it would be traumatizing to see me again so soon. Most tellingly, she reacted defensively, almost angrily, when another friend suggested Jessica consider counseling before finalizing the divorce. Michael also discovered something none of us had known. Amanda had recently been passed over for a promotion she had expected, with the position going to a married colleague. Her financial struggles and career disappointment coincided with the escalation of her dependence on Jessica and her increasing involvement in our marriage. The pieces began fitting together into a disturbing pattern of jealousy and manipulation. Armed with Ryan's technical evidence and Michael's observations, I prepared to reveal the truth. However, Michael suggested a different approach than my planned confrontation with Jessica. "Let me talk to Amanda first," he proposed. "She trusts me as a neutral party. If I present just enough evidence to rattle her, she might reveal something incriminating." I agreed, recognizing that Jessica would be more likely to believe Amanda's confession than my accusations, no matter how much evidence I had gathered. Michael arranged to meet Amanda for drinks under the pretense of discussing a surprise birthday party for Jessica. He strategically mentioned that I had been meeting with a digital forensics expert, carefully watching her reaction. He noted that certain inconsistencies had been discovered in the evidence against me and asked innocently whether she was absolutely certain about what she had seen. Amanda's composed facade cracked momentarily. "What kind of inconsistencies?" she demanded, suddenly defensive. Michael explained vaguely about timestamp anomalies and metadata issues, terms he had learned from me, but did not fully understand himself. He mentioned that experts could determine if messages had been fabricated or photos altered, and that I seemed unusually confident for someone guilty. Amanda began drinking more heavily, as their conversation continued, growing increasingly agitated. When Michael suggested that Jessica might be considering hearing me out, Amanda's control finally slipped. "She cannot talk to him alone," she snapped. "He will just manipulate her again. I have spent too much effort getting her away from him." "Why does it matter so much to you?" Michael asked carefully. "I mean, you have been amazingly supportive, but this seems personal." The alcohol and frustration loosened Amanda's careful restraint. "Because he never deserved her," she hissed. "I have been there for Jessica for 15 years through everything. He swooped in and took over her life. She was going to have his baby, for God's sake. After everything I did, after how much I love her." Michael recorded this conversation discreetly on his phone, capturing Amanda's damning admissions. The next day, he played the recording for Jessica, whose initial disbelief gave way to horrified understanding as she heard her best friend essentially confess to deliberate deception. Jessica confronted Amanda, immediately inviting her over and directly questioning the validity of the evidence. Amanda initially maintained her story expression righteous and offended that Jessica would doubt her. But when Jessica revealed the recording and mentioned the forensic analysis, Amanda's facade crumbled completely. "You were never supposed to find out," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "You were just supposed to leave him and eventually see that I was the one who truly cared about you, not him." "You destroyed my marriage with lies," Jessica whispered, shock evident in her voice. "Why would you do this to me?" To us, Amanda's confession poured out in a torrent of justification and resentment. She had harbored feelings for me since early in my relationship with Jessica, but suppressed them out of loyalty. The breakup with her boyfriend, coinciding with our baby plans, had triggered overwhelming jealousy and desperation. She convinced herself that Jessica deserved someone who would prioritize her above career ambitions, someone like her who understood her completely. "I would have made you happier than he ever could," Amanda insisted through tears. "I know you better than anyone. I love you more than he does." Jessica ordered Amanda out of her house and her life, the 15-year friendship shattered beyond repair by this ultimate betrayal. Within hours, Jessica contacted me, her voice small and uncertain as she asked if we could talk. She explained what had happened, how Amanda had been exposed, and how devastated she felt by the dual betrayal from her husband and her best friend. "I am so sorry I did not believe you," she said, crying softly. "I cannot imagine what you have been through these past months. Can we meet tomorrow, please?" My emotions upon receiving this call were profoundly mixed. Part of me felt vindicated and relieved that the truth had finally emerged. Another part felt a surge of lingering love for the woman who had been my partner for a decade. But overshadowing these feelings was a deep, irresolvable sense of injury. Jessica had believed the worst about me without giving me the benefit of doubt I had earned through years of faithful partnership. I agreed to meet her, not out of eagerness to reconcile, but from a need for closure and perhaps a chance to understand how our supposedly unshakable foundation had crumbled so easily. The next day I met Jessica at a neutral coffee shop downtown, far from our usual haunts where memories might complicate an already difficult conversation. She arrived early, securing a private table in the corner, her face showing evidence of sleepless nights and prolonged crying. Despite everything, my heart ached at seeing her pain. "Thank you for coming," she began, voice trembling slightly. "I do not even know where to start, except to say how profoundly sorry I am for what happened." She explained how thoroughly Amanda had manipulated her, presenting carefully selected evidence over multiple conversations, always when Jessica was tired or stressed. Amanda had exploited intimate knowledge of our relationship to craft believable lies, timing her revelation perfectly to coincide with our family planning discussions when hormones and emotions ran high. She knew exactly what would hurt me most, Jessica explained, and I let her convince me that the man who had never given me reason to doubt was capable of the worst kind of betrayal. Tears streamed down her face as she reached for my hand across the table. I allowed the contact briefly before gently withdrawing. I was wrong, completely wrong, she continued. I should have trusted the 8 years of honesty and commitment over suddenly discovered evidence from someone who clearly had her own agenda. I will regret that failure of faith for the rest of my life. Jessica described her shock upon hearing Amanda's confession, the sickening realization that she had banished an innocent husband and embraced the true betrayer. She spoke of sleepless nights re-examining every interaction, identifying red flags she had missed, and recognizing patterns of manipulation that now seemed obvious in retrospect. "I want to try again," she said finally. "I know I hurt you terribly, but our marriage was real and strong before this. We can rebuild with counseling and time. I still love you, Bob. That never changed." I sat quietly for several minutes organizing thoughts that had been forming during our 2 months apart. When I finally spoke, my voice was steady despite the emotion behind my words. "I still care about you, Jessica. A decade of love does not simply vanish. But something fundamental broke when you believed I could betray you so completely, so easily. You chose her word over our history together." "I know," she whispered. "I have no excuse except that she crafted a perfect trap when I was vulnerable." I nodded, acknowledging her perspective without accepting it as sufficient. "The problem is not just that you believed the lie, but what that reveals about your trust in me and in us. If our bond could be severed by fabricated evidence without you even considering alternative explanations, then perhaps it was not as strong as I believed." Jessica flinched at this assessment but did not contradict it. "What are you saying? That you cannot forgive me?" "I am saying that forgiveness is possible, but restoration is complicated," I explained carefully. "I need to know that if we tried again, you would not abandon faith in me the next time someone presents damning evidence or circumstances appear suspicious." I outlined my thoughts about our situation with painful honesty. The trust that had been the foundation of our relationship had been revealed as fragile and conditional. Rebuilding would require more than apologies and promises. It would demand fundamental changes in how we communicated and prioritized each other. "I cannot simply move back home and pretend the past 2 months never happened," I told her. "I need time and space to heal from this trauma. I need you to understand the depth of the wound before we can discuss how to treat it." I suggested we both attend individual counseling before considering couples therapy, giving us tools to process what had happened separately before attempting joint healing. I explained that reconciliation, if possible, would require a gradual process rather than an immediate reunion. "I need to see consistent evidence that your trust in me is not easily shaken," I said. "And I need to rebuild my own confidence that I will not be discarded again at the first suggestion of wrongdoing." Jessica accepted these terms with tearful composure, expressing willingness to respect whatever boundaries I needed while hoping for eventual reconciliation. We agreed to limited contact initially, occasional conversations and updates, rather than immediate immersion in each other's lives. As we prepared to leave, Jessica asked one final question. "Do you think we can find our way back to what we had?" I considered this carefully before answering. "Not to what we had exactly. That relationship was built on a trust that proved more vulnerable than either of us realized. If we rebuild it, will be something new, hopefully stronger for having been tested, but definitely different." In the aftermath of our meeting, life slowly reorganized itself around new realities. Amanda, facing social rejection after the truth emerged, eventually relocated to another city, her professional reputation damaged by rumors of her deception. Jessica moved temporarily to a smaller apartment, unable to bear living alone in the house we had shared, surrounded by memories of both happiness and betrayal. I focused intently on rebuilding my independent life, securing a better position at work that involved less overtime, reconnecting with friends who had distanced themselves during the separation, and establishing a comfortable routine in my new apartment. I joined a support group for people who had experienced relationship betrayal, finding validation and healing among others with similar wounds. The most surprising aspect of my recovery was rediscovering passions I had neglected during my marriage. I resumed rock climbing at an indoor gym, signed up for advanced coding classes, and volunteered teaching computer skills at a community center on weekends. These activities not only filled my time, but restored my sense of identity separate from my role as Jessica's husband. I also formed new friendships with people who knew nothing of my history relationships, uncontaminated by past drama or preconceptions. These connections offered fresh perspectives and reminded me that life continues to present opportunities for growth, even after devastating losses. Jessica honored my request for space, while making consistent efforts to demonstrate her remorse and desire to rebuild. She sent thoughtful but undemanding messages, shared insights from her therapy sessions, and occasionally dropped off home-cooked meals at my apartment without expecting to be invited inside. She never pressured me for commitments or deadlines regarding our relationship. 6 months after our separation, we began meeting more regularly, sometimes for coffee, occasionally for dinner. Our conversations gradually shifted from processing the past to cautiously exploring the present and future. We discussed current events, career developments, and personal growth, rebuilding a foundation of friendship and mutual respect. I observed Jessica with clearer eyes during these interactions, recognizing both the qualities that had initially drawn me to her and the vulnerabilities that had contributed to our breakdown. Her loyalty, once directed unquestioningly toward Amanda, now manifested as fierce protectiveness of our fragile new connection. Her emotional sensitivity, which had made her susceptible to manipulation, also enabled genuine empathy for my continuing struggle to trust again. We began dating cautiously, approaching each other as familiar strangers, learning to connect on new terms. There were awkward moments and occasional setbacks when triggers reopened old wounds, but also surprising discoveries as we encountered aspects of each other previously overshadowed by established relationship patterns. Throughout this period of tentative reconnection, I maintained firm boundaries and continued developing my independent life. Whether our marriage would ultimately survive remained an open question, but I recognized that my well-being could no longer depend on that outcome. The experience had forced me to develop self-reliance and internal validation that would serve me regardless of our relationship status. The lessons from this painful chapter transformed my understanding of trust and relationships fundamentally. I learned that trust is not simply a feeling, but a choice reinforced by consistent actions over time. I recognize that even the closest relationships require healthy boundaries and independent identities to withstand external pressures. Most importantly, I discovered that self-respect must precede reconciliation. Forgiving Jessica became possible only after establishing that I would be whole, with or without her. This understanding shifted the power dynamics of our relationship, creating the possibility for a healthier connection based on mutual choice rather than dependency or obligation. As I reflect on this journey from betrayal to gradual healing, I realize that the pain of Jessica's lack of faith in me may never completely disappear. Some wounds leave permanent scars, visible reminders of vulnerability and resilience. Yet these marks need not define the future or prevent new growth. The truth about trust is that it remains a risk always. There are no guarantees in human relationships, only probabilities strengthened by consistent choices. The question becomes not whether absolute certainty is possible, but whether the connection is valuable enough to justify the inevitable uncertainty. For those of you watching who have experienced betrayal, I want you to know that healing is possible, though rarely straightforward. Your timeline belongs to you alone, not to those who hurt you or even those who love you. The path forward may include reconciliation or separation, forgiveness or distance, but it must always include self-respect and personal growth. Have you ever faced a situation where trust was broken in your relationship? How did you decide whether to rebuild or walk away? Share your experiences in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. I read every comment and appreciate your support as I continue sharing these difficult life lessons. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes our greatest strength emerges from our most painful challenges.